This is a challenge. How long before I hate everything? Hello, I'm Gail, also known as Jiggies and Gems. I do a lot of puzzles, diamond painting, paper crafting, and dabble in other crafts, mainly on Instagram. And to be honest, I don't plan to post here with any regularity, but sometimes you do things that take more than 3 minutes to describe. So here we are. And since we have the space, this will probably be a lot longer than 3 minutes. So this is part 1 of my take on the 26 for 26 challenge. I guarantee that no one has done it quite like me. So if you're in the cross-stitch or diamond painting world, you may have heard of this challenge. It began in cross-stitching, where the idea is to work on 26 whips, 26 projects during the course of the year. Diamond painters have interpreted that to suit their needs. Now, I don't diamond paint nearly enough to do 26 diamond paintings in 1 year, or even to start 26. That's just not for me. So I was trying to figure out how to interpret this for puzzles, because I do a lot of puzzles. It's not uncommon for me to do well more than 26 puzzles in a month. So I thought, what if I did 26 300-piece puzzles as a challenge, like in 1 weekend? But for my own sanity, I had to split that up. So I'm doing this in 3 chunks, so 8 or 9 puzzles at once. And of course, to keep things interesting, I approached this as a relay. So I'm spending 5 minutes on one puzzle, moving to the next, spending 5 minutes on that, moving to the next, and so on. Now, if I'm speed puzzling, and I didn't approach this as a speed challenge, but if I'm speed puzzling, I can usually do a 300-piece puzzle between 20 and 40 minutes. So if we say an average of 30, 35, that should be around 4.5 hours. But of course, by breaking up the puzzles a relay, it slows it down, and of course, over 4 hours, surely I would lose steam, right? But I was anticipating at least 4 hours. Now, I chose all different brands, different sizes. I really tried not to overthink this challenge, because at some point I knew I needed to just dive in order to just do it, or it would never happen, right? I was going to run out of time in my day if I was trying to make it perfect. So I definitely made some adjustments on the fly, and I have some regrets. So let's take a look at the puzzles I chose. So we have a Ravensburger with kittens, a Euorgraphics, Lucia Heffernan, Charles Wysocki Buffalo, this Mattel, I think it's Spinmaster, 80s icons. We have a SunsOut Manatee, Ceaco, Avanti, Waitress Droy, a Blanc, Bits and Pieces, and a Remarks. So 9 different brands, and we'll see if we can get through them all. So I initially chose 9 puzzles. I thought I could make 9 fit on my space, but the space definitely got the better of me. That actually turned out to be a blessing in disguise, though, because one puzzle I thought was a panorama and would fit, and I chose it only because it was a panorama. I wasn't really thinking about the image, and it was a terrible choice for this challenge. So keep watching to see how that played out. And I'll also caveat this with the statement that I did just dive right in to see what would happen. I didn't spend much time getting the perfect angles. I didn't even know if my tech was going to have space for time lapses or videos. It did, and it turns out. So there's a lot of lessons learned here, but even though there's a lot of glare in some of the videos, I still think there's enough interesting things that are worth sharing. So let's dig in. All right, let's just see what happens. So round 1 was mostly flipping and sorting, and I regretted not sorting more of the first puzzle, so I did a lot more sorting up front from there. His tray sure is full. I should have done more sorting. Maybe I will keep that in mind for the next ones. You'll have to forgive my progress shots because I pulled them from the time lapses, but you can see on the Euorgraphics I did the black board in the back and I pulled the edges. Guys. This is not the fastest Wysocki, however. That's okay. One on the floor. Take me 5 minutes just to sort this thing.
So the Wysocki, I did a lot more sorting than the last one, and I didn't even finish flipping.
This is chaos. Burby and Bernie. How long before I hate everything?
The Mattel, I sorted out several items and put together some of the Uno cards.
What do we even... Why am I doing this one? Why did I choose this? Oof.
The Manatee, I started pulling the edges, but ouch.
But I can't... Oh, there's just not room to sort all this. Doing it anyway.
The Ceaco, I pulled out the edge and 2 different kinds of reds and started on that text there.
Ooh, this is a hot mess of a puzzle. At least the pieces are smaller.
The Blanc, I pulled and started the edges because I was so overwhelmed with everything else.
Maybe I should have intentionally picked easier puzzles. Like I kind of did. But I wanted a variety.
The bits and pieces, I pulled the edge and the quilt, even though I knew I wasn't going to start there. Yay, clutter.
Shoot. This is going to be hard without spreading out.
The dogs, I pulled the edge and the blue, which was a bigger pile than I expected. And the Rev, I pulled the edges and started working on those just because I needed to define the space. In round 2, I started to get all the edges together and I realized I had a huge space issue. I did not think this through.
These pieces are big. Like I knew that, but I don't know if I knew that. Okay.
So the Euorgraphic, I finished the edges, even though I didn't have space to put them all together, and I pulled out some of the picture frames.
This is a challenge.
The Wysocki, I finished the edges and the flag and started on something else.
Abs. Wait, more abs.
The Mattel, I had finished the Uno, cards, Barbie, and the other girls, and had a pile of He-Man abs. The Manatee, I committed to the edges and just hated everything.
The fun part is I don't think these are actually all going to fit, but we will cross that bridge when we get there. Okay, so this edge is essentially done. I just have no space.
The Ceaco, I finished the edges and that text at the top and started on the reds.
Hopefully, that's the corner because there's no more room. It's not.
I finished the edges of the Blanc, pulled the purples and the grapefruits.
Ooh, water. So we decided to ignore everything that's in front of me. Because we're definitely going to need to move everything over. Once again, we're not going to have enough room.
I started on that green background and did some more sorting.
Yeah, the border's essentially done. We just don't have space for it. Again, I don't know if it's going to fit.
I have a big mess in front of me, but I did the edges and started on the blues.
Can I help it? Is this the best way to do this? Probably not, but...
Finished the edges and started on the cats. And here's a taste of the space issues I was having at the end of the table. Round 3, I had a great idea that solved a lot of my space issues, and then I started to make good progress.
Because even if I get rid of Manatee, if I get rid of Manatee, I could at least have enough room left right.
So I worked on more of the frames in the background, and then I got rid of the blasted Manatee. How brilliant! I still had space issues, but it did solve my left-right problems at least. I filled in some skies on the Wysocki and did some more sorting. I finished Barney, the rest of the girls, and some of He-Man. I finished the reds and those lines on the apron. I finished those grapefruits and I guess started pulling the yellows, I don't know. I made some progress on the side of the puzzle and started pulling some of the middle. The blues were mostly done at this point. And I'd finished most of the kittens and their outlines. And you can see here, without that manatee, I just had a lot more room left, right? In round 4, I made good progress all around, and I generally had enough structure to figure out my spacing and where I had to overlap the borders. Euorgraphics, I had filled in a lot of the frames and connected a lot of islands. I finished the lighthouse and much of the cart. This was great. I filled in the rest of He-Man and the car and started on the words. This one doesn't look like much, but I did the face and kind of the edges of the red and the cat. I was struggling with this, but I filled in some yellows. Struggling here too, but progress on that sewing machine and on that side of the puzzle. I did the chunks with the red and orange backgrounds. And the cats were finished, and I'm starting to pick out the butterflies in the background. Round 5, we have our first finish, and oh yeah, I remember what speed puzzling is and pushed through some more. This one I had finished pretty much everything except for that pig, and I filled in a lot of the bottom on the Wysocki. Okay, let's finish this one. Okay, 244 left on that one. I want this tray for something, just don't ask me what. Probably this one. We finished one! This was a great puzzle for this challenge. I finished all of the background here. These two are kind of terrible. That one's fine. There's progress, but don't ask me what. I filled in that center top section, and I finally had an extra tray, so I did some more sorting here. Filled in the yellows and the grays, and I'm darn close on this one. And you can't see them, but there's colorful butterflies that I put together and used the box to put in place. Round 6 was awesome. I finished several, including some I did not think I would finish. It was really great. Finished the pig. Was great. Love this puzzle. I'm not quite gonna finish it. And just speeding this up to 2 times speed here, so I'm moving fast, but I'm not moving that fast. Didn't think I would finish, but I did with plenty of time left. I was really pushing hard on this one, but I did indeed finish it. And goodbye momentum, but I did make some progress. I filled in some curtains on this one. We are closing in, that's for sure. Didn't have far to go on this one, so I finished it too. And I mostly filled in by shape, but I also finished the rev. Round 7, had momentum, did not finish. Alright, these two suckers. I mean, there's visible progress, right? And everything but the quilt is done at this point. You know, the thing I first pulled out and had to move to a tray later. Round 8. Let's finish it out. Like, there's only so much in that shape. We did it! And you can see some of the glare I was working with too. Guess it's gonna shake from here. And I finished the quilt. Hooray. I finished the challenge, 4.5 hours, but here's some views of everything completed. I did this straight through and did not stop for dinner, for reference.
So my total time for the puzzle was about 4 hours and 28 minutes for 8 puzzles plus 2 full rounds on the Manatee. And I didn't stop the big timer when I took some little pauses in between. I only just started the 5-minute timer when I sat down again. So I stopped to turn on music because I forgot to do that. I stopped to get a hair tie. I stopped to remove that Manatee. Sometimes I fixed some borders just before I would start a timer. But that seems like a decent time to me for not truly being a speed challenge and maybe not picking the easiest puzzles. So what did I think about the puzzles? The Euorgraphics, I loved that image. I love Lucia Heffernan, and it was a great puzzle to speed, but boy were those pieces huge. Didn't think that one through. The Wysocki was fine. It's a reasonably sized puzzle, so that was no problem. The Mattel, the Spinmaster with the 80s icons, that was like a perfect speed puzzle, perfect for this challenge. I loved that. It was just like a relief when I got back to it. It seemed busy at first, but it ended up being really good. We already know what I think of the Manatee. I did end up finishing the Manatee later on, though. I think later that night or the next night. So I'll put a picture of that finished, you know, for some closure. The Avanti, the Ceaco, I had no problems with this puzzle. It turned out being just fine. I was a little worried it might be difficult, but it was no problem in the end. What was next? The Blanc was too busy for me. Busy is not my strong suit, and so I kind of dreaded getting to that puzzle every time. And then it didn't help that there was like a stretch of kind of not my strong suit puzzles in a row. But that was the perfect physical size. So I'll definitely need to use some of them in the future if I do this again. Funny story, I actually had 2 Blancs on my table and ended up going down to 1 so I could have different brands, and the other one is so much easier. Oops. Let's see, the bits and pieces was also kind of physically large. I could have picked something easier. It was okay, but it was tough doing the Blanc and then the bits and pieces. The Remarks dogs would be a really quick speed puzzle if I could spread everything out, but I had trouble working on this one in trays. It ended up being fine, but the other aspect was the copy I did had white backed pieces. This is actually my second copy, and it has gray backed pieces that are more normal pieces. So the white pieces kind of kept popping apart, especially because I had the borders overlap. So I spent a lot of time futzing that border. And then the last puzzle, the Ravensburger kittens, was fine. No notes. So it ended up being a interesting selection, but it kept things interesting, that's for sure. So what did I learn? I should actually prepare for a challenge. I mean, I knew that, but when diving into something that's going to be more than 4 hours, you don't always have time. I could also be more discriminatory about the images I chose. I didn't purposely pick anything super challenging. Of course, I didn't think about the Manatee, but I maybe could have picked some easier puzzles because I was doing a 4+ hour challenge. And I should have measured and thought about dimensions, because that made a big difference. This became a whole challenge in space management more than anything. I also should plan for trays. I threw some out last minute, but I had to stand up and get a few more. I could really use more trays, and it took me a while to figure out kind of what to do with them between rounds, where to put them so they kind of weren't cluttering up the space. But the other thing is, because I was working out of trays, I was doing a lot of one-handed puzzling, so that's not necessarily the swiftest way to do a puzzle, but it kind of became necessary. And of course, if I planned ahead, I could try to do much better on the glare in my 2 different time lapses. I wasn't really thinking that when I took the time lapses on my phone that it was going to compress 4 hours into 30 seconds, so those ended up being really short. So even though those were my better angles, you still can't make much out. So I have some technical things I'll fix for next time. So I'm trying to decide what part 2 and 3 should look like for this challenge. I'm not set on them looking the same. You know, I'm going to need to do 9 puzzles each time to get to 26. But I for space reasons, I could throw in some Boardwalk 210s, or I could do all Boardwalk 210s. I certainly have enough of them. Or I could do sprints. I could do 100-piece puzzles and rotate every 90 seconds or something chaotic like that. That would certainly be a much faster challenge. Maybe as a set, they could all three be different. Part of why I chose 300-piece puzzles is because it definitely made it a true challenge. And because I just have a lot of 300-piece puzzles. I don't know why I have so many at this point, but I have a lot, and I wanted to clear some of those out. So let me know what you think. Should I do a part 2? And what should that look like? Comment below, let me know. If you want to see part 2, maybe consider subscribing. Again, I have no idea how frequently I'll be posting here, but presumably I'll post part 2 and 3 before the end of the year. Happy puzzling, thanks for joining me, and I'll see you in the next one.